In the quiet town of Maplewood, nestled between thick forests and winding rivers, a sense of unease had settled over its residents. The trees whispered secrets in the wind, and shadows seemed to stretch longer than necessary, as if time itself was playing tricks. The small community, once bustling with laughter and chatter, now felt the weight of a shared paranoia. At the center of this anxiety was the International Space Station, or rather, the dark truth swirling around it. Jason Mills, a high school science teacher with a penchant for conspiracy theories, had been watching the stars since he was a child. Each night he would climb to the rooftop of his modest home, equipped with a telescope, yearning to unlock the mysteries of the universe. But lately, his focus had shifted from the stars to the peculiarities of the ISS. Why, he wondered, had NASA become so secretive about its missions? Why had the footage from the station started to show oddities, glitches, distortions, and strange objects drifting in and out of view? His curiosity morphed into obsession. The more he delved into the depths of the internet, the more convinced he became that something sinister was happening in orbit. He stumbled upon forums populated by like-minded individuals, all echoing the same sentiment. NASA is lying. They spoke of shadowy figures, experiments gone wrong, and whispers of extraterrestrial encounters. But the real kicker was the unsettling video footage that had recently surfaced. Footage that seemed to suggest something was not quite right aboard the ISS. "Jason, are you coming to bed?" his wife, Emily, called from the darkened doorway of their bedroom. Her voice pulled him from his thoughts, and he glanced at the clock. It was past midnight, and he had been lost in the rabbit hole of speculation for hours. "Yeah, just a minute," he replied, reluctantly tearing himself away from the glow of his computer screen. As he stood, he felt a cold chill run down his spine. It wasn't just the late hour or the encroaching winter chill that unsettled him. It was the feeling that he was being watched. The following day, Jason decided to address his students about the ISS. He felt it was crucial to ignite their curiosity about space, but he also wanted to share the unsettling things he had discovered. He prepared a PowerPoint presentation filled with clips of bizarre anomalies caught on the ISS's live feed, and shared conspiracy theories that questioned NASA's narrative. The students, initially intrigued, soon became restless. They squirmed in their seats, their attention drifting. Yet, one student, a quiet girl named Mia, raised her hand hesitantly. "Mr. Mills, do you really think there's something wrong up there?" Her eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and fascination. Jason paused, feeling the weight of her question. "I believe there are things we don't understand. Things that we're not being told." Mia leaned in closer, her voice a whisper. "Like what? Aliens?" Jason shrugged. "Maybe. But what if it's something worse? What if the ISS is not what we think it is?" The bell rang, signaling the end of class. As the students filed out, Jason noticed Mia lingering, her expression serious. "Mr. Mills, I've seen the videos too. There's something strange about it. My dad says it's just a hoax, but I don't know." He nodded, intrigued by her insight. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. After class, Jason began to receive strange messages online from people claiming to have insider knowledge about the ISS. Some called themselves whistleblowers, others just curious souls. One message stood out, sent from an anonymous account. "If you want to know the truth, meet me at the old observatory tonight. Bring someone you trust." Jason felt a rush of adrenaline. This could be a chance to uncover the truth behind the veils of secrecy, but he was torn. Should he go alone, or should he take someone with him? That evening, Jason decided to take Mia. After all, she seemed to share his curiosity and determination. He told Emily he was taking Mia to the observatory to look at the stars, conveniently leaving out the potential danger. Emily trusted him, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he was keeping something from her. As they approached the old observatory, its silhouette loomed against the starry sky, a relic of a time when science was pure and untainted by corporate interests. The structure was weathered, its telescope pointing skyward as if searching for something long lost. "Are you sure about this?" Mia asked, glancing around nervously. The wind howled, creating an eerie atmosphere. "Absolutely," Jason replied, trying to inject confidence into his voice. "This could be important." Inside the observatory was dark, save for the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through dusty windows. As they moved deeper into the building, they found a small room filled with old charts and books about the stars, remnants of a time when astronomers dared to dream. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. A tall man with a scruffy beard and wild eyes. "You came," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "I didn't think you would." "Are you the one who sent me the message?" Jason asked, his heart racing. "Yes," the man replied, his gaze flickering to Mia. "You both need to know what's happening up there. The truth is far worse than you can imagine." "What do you mean?" Jason pressed, stepping closer. The man leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The ISS isn't just a research station. It's a containment facility." Jason's breath caught in his throat. Containment of what? "Something they found years ago. Something extraterrestrial," the man continued, his eyes wide with fervor. "They've been hiding it, but it's getting harder to contain." Jason exchanged a glance with Mia, her wide eyes mirroring his disbelief. "What evidence do you have?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The man pulled out a flash drive, handing it to Jason. "This contains footage. You need to see it for yourself." That night, Jason and Mia watched the footage in the comfort of his home, the dim light from the computer screen casting an ominous glow. The video showed grainy images taken from inside the ISS, astronauts moving about, seemingly normal, until the camera cut to a darkened area of the station. "What is that?" Mia asked, leaning closer to the screen. In the flickering video, a shadow moved across the wall, something unidentifiable and monstrous. It lurked just out of frame, but the astronauts seemed oblivious, continuing their tasks as if nothing was wrong. Then, abruptly, the feed cut to static. Jason's heart raced as he processed what he'd seen. This is evidence of something," he murmured, feeling a chill spread through his bones. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the back of the house, causing both of them to jump. Jason's instincts kicked in. He grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the sound, heart pounding in his chest. "Mia, stay here," he instructed, but she followed, a mix of fear and determination in her eyes. As they moved through the house, they found nothing but the remnants of a falling picture frame. But then they noticed something out of place, a faint sound like whispers drifting through the air. They exchanged a worried glance and moved toward the source, which led them to the basement door. Jason hesitated, the air thick with tension. "Should we go down?" "Yeah, we have to," Mia insisted, her voice barely above a whisper. With a deep breath, Jason opened the door and they descended into the dark. The basement was cold and musty, filled with old boxes and forgotten memories. But the whispers grew louder, an unsettling cacophony that seemed to wrap around them like a fog. Then, without warning, the lights flickered on, illuminating the room. And there, in the corner, was a strange device, a metal box humming with energy. "What is that?" Mia whispered, stepping closer. "I don't know, but we should be careful," Jason replied, sensing an inexplicable danger. As they examined the device, Jason noticed strange symbols etched into its surface. He reached out to touch it, but Mia grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't! What if it's dangerous?" But curiosity won over caution. As Jason pressed his fingers against the cold metal, the device suddenly whirred to life, projecting a holographic image into the air, a series of symbols and diagrams that made no sense. "What is this?" Mia gasped, trying to make sense of the swirling images. I think it's data from the ISS, Jason said, squinting at the projections. "This could be what they're hiding." But as they continued to study the hologram, a new symbol emerged, an ominous shape resembling a creature, grotesque and alien. Its many eyes seemed to pierce through the light, and Jason felt a wave of dread wash over him. Suddenly, the device emitted a piercing sound, and the hologram flickered, revealing a date, 2025. Panic surged through Jason. "What does this mean?" "I don't know, but I don't like it," Mia replied, stepping back. Just then, Jason's phone buzzed, breaking the heavy silence. It was a message from an unknown number. "You're getting too close. Back off or face the consequences." The message sent a shiver down his spine. "We need to go, now," he said, grabbing Mia's hand. As they ascended the stairs, the whispers intensified, filling the air with an ominous warning. They burst into the living room, and Jason quickly locked the basement door. "What do we do now?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "We figure out what's happening," Jason replied, his determination reignited. "We need to expose the truth." In the following days, Jason and Mia began to investigate further. They contacted other conspiracy theorists, gathering information and forming connections. They uncovered a network of individuals who had witnessed strange phenomena related to the ISS. Disappearances, odd sightings, and even reports of astronauts who returned with stories too strange to believe. As they pieced together the puzzle, they began to realize the scale of the deception. The ISS was not just a space station. It was a front for something much darker, a way to contain and study something beyond human comprehension. One night, they gathered in Jason's living room, surrounded by papers and notes. "What if it's not just about the ISS?" Mia suggested. "What if it's about something much bigger?" Jason nodded, his mind racing. What if this has been going on for decades? What if they found more than just one thing? Their research pointed to a history of secrecy surrounding space exploration, cover-ups that stretch back to the earliest days of NASA. The revelations were staggering, and they realized they were in over their heads. Just as they were about to dig deeper, a loud crash echoed outside. They rushed to the window and gasped at the sight before them. A black van parked across the street, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Figures moved within, their intentions unclear. "This isn't just some conspiracy anymore," Jason said, fear creeping into his voice. "We're in real danger." Determined not to let fear take control, Jason and Mia decided to confront the situation. They slipped out the back door and made their way into the woods behind Jason's house, hoping to avoid detection. The cold air bit at their skin, and the rustling leaves echoed their anxiety. As they moved deeper into the woods, they could hear the van's engine revving to life. Panic surged through Jason. "We need to find a place to hide." They stumbled upon an old cabin, long abandoned, and cloaked in darkness. It was their best chance. They rushed inside, closing the door behind them. Inside, the cabin was eerily quiet, the air thick with dust and memories. Jason found a flashlight and flicked it on, illuminating the small space. They took a moment to catch their breath, their hearts racing as they listened for any signs of pursuit. "We can't stay here forever," Mia whispered, her eyes darting around the room. "What if they find us?" Jason nodded, aware that the situation was growing more dire. "We need to come up with a plan. We can't let them stop us from exposing the truth." As they sat in the dim light, they began to formulate a strategy. They would gather evidence, compile their findings, and share it with the world. They knew the risks, but the truth was worth fighting for. Suddenly, a loud knock reverberated through the cabin, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. Jason's heart dropped. "They found us," The door creaked open and 2 figures stepped inside, silhouetted against the moonlight. Jason recognized one of them, an old friend from college, Mark, now dressed in a dark suit that screamed authority. "Jason, what the hell are you doing here?" Mark demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "You need to leave. This isn't a game." Mia stepped forward, defiant. "We know what's happening, Mark. We're not going to just walk away." Mark's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. This is bigger than you, bigger than all of us." "Then tell us the truth," Jason shouted, feeling a surge of frustration. "Why is NASA hiding everything?" "Because it's dangerous," Mark replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What they're containing, it's not just an alien species. It's something that can change everything. And it's not meant for human eyes." Mia took a step back, her mind racing. "What do you mean?" "Years ago, during a routine mission, they found something in deep space. Something that shouldn't exist. They brought it back, thinking they could study it. But they were wrong. They lost control, and now it's trapped on the ISS." "Trapped?" Jason echoed, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "It's alive," Mark said, his eyes filled with fear. "And it's growing stronger." The weight of Mark's revelation hung heavy in the air. Jason felt a mix of fear and resolve coursing through him. "What do we do now?" Mark looked between them, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. "We need to get out of here and figure out a way to expose the truth, but it won't be easy. They have eyes everywhere." Suddenly, the sound of voices echoed outside the cabin, sending chills down their spines. "We don't have much time," Mark urged. "We need to move." They slipped out the back of the cabin and into the woods, moving swiftly and quietly. The moonlight guided their path, but the darkness around them felt alive, as if it were watching. As they reached a clearing, Jason glanced back, catching sight of the van parked on the road, its headlights cutting through the trees. "They're close," he whispered. "We need a plan," Mia insisted, her voice steady. "We can't just run forever." Mark nodded, his mind racing. "We need to reach a safe place, somewhere we can lay low and strategize." Jason's heart raced. "What about the old library in town? It's usually empty, and we can use their computers." "Good idea," Mia replied. "Let's move." As they hurried through the woods, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig felt like a threat. They reached the edge of the woods and sprinted toward the library, their breaths heavy in the cold night air. The library loomed before them, its dark windows reflecting the moonlight. Jason pushed the door open and they slipped inside, the musty smell of old books enveloping them. "Quick, let's find a computer," Mark said, scanning the dimly lit room. They made their way to the back, finding a row of ancient computers, flickering screens casting shadows on the walls. Jason sat down, fingers trembling as he powered one up. "We need to gather everything we can about the ISS and the anomalies," he said, typing furiously. "We need to find evidence of what's really happening." As they scoured the internet for information, they uncovered a series of classified documents revealing hidden experiments conducted aboard the ISS. Graphs of biological anomalies, footage of strange creatures, and ominous warnings about potential containment breaches flooded their screens. "This is it," Mia whispered, her eyes wide. "We can't just sit on this." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "But we need to be careful. They're going to be looking for us." Suddenly the lights flickered, and Jason felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "What was that?" "I don't know," Mia replied, glancing around. "Maybe a power outage." But just as Jason opened his mouth to respond, the front door burst open, and a group of men in dark suits stormed in, their eyes scanning the room. "Get down!" Mark shouted, pushing Jason and Mia to the floor. The men began to search the library, their movements methodical and precise. Jason's heart raced as he felt the cold grip of fear tighten around him. They couldn't be caught. They had too much information to lose. "Over here," one of the men shouted, pointing toward the computers. "Run!" Mark yelled, grabbing Mia's hand and pulling her towards the back exit. Jason followed closely, adrenaline surging through him as they burst through the back door and into the alley behind the library. The cool night air hit them like a slap, but they didn't stop to catch their breath. "Where do we go now?" Mia panted, glancing back at the library. "There's a maintenance shed nearby," Mark suggested. "We can hide there until it's safe." They sprinted toward the shed, pushing open the door just in time to hear footsteps behind them. The men were closing in, and Jason felt a surge of panic. Inside the shed, they huddled behind stacks of old tools and equipment, their breaths shallow and rapid. The sound of footsteps echoed outside, and they held their breath, straining to hear what was happening. "Split up," one of the men ordered. "They can't have gone far. Search the area." Jason clenched his fists, anxiety pulsing through him. "We can't stay here much longer." "We need to find a way to contact someone who can help us," Mark whispered. "Someone who knows what's happening." Suddenly, Jason's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was an unknown number. "Who is it?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," Jason replied, but the curiosity was overwhelming. He answered the call, heart racing. "Jason Mills," a voice said, low and gravelly. "You need to listen carefully. They're coming for you. You must leave town now." "Who is this?" Jason asked, confusion swirling in his mind. "Time is short. Trust no one. You're in grave danger," the voice warned, before abruptly hanging up. "What did they say?" Mark asked urgently. "They know we're here," Jason replied, adrenaline coursing through him. "We need to move, now." With their hearts pounding, Jason, Mia, and Mark slipped out of the shed, scanning the area for any signs of danger. The moon illuminated their path as they hurried towards the edge of town, desperation driving them forward. "Where do we go?" Mia gasped, glancing back at the library, the dark figures now visible in the distance. "We need to find a car," Mark replied. "There's an old gas station a few miles from here. We can hide there." They sprinted through the darkness, the cold air burning their lungs as they pushed themselves to the limit. Jason's mind raced with thoughts of what they had uncovered, evidence of something unimaginable lurking aboard the ISS. If only they could expose the truth, they could stop whatever was happening. As they neared the gas station, Jason felt a surge of hope. They could find a way to alert the authorities, or at least gather more information. But as they approached the building, they noticed something was off. The gas station was eerily quiet, the lights flickering ominously. "Do you think anyone's here?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "Let's check it out," Mark suggested, glancing around. Inside, the gas station was abandoned, the shelves covered in dust and cobwebs. But in the corner, a payphone stood, its receiver hanging loosely. "We can use that to call for help," Jason said, moving toward the phone. As he picked up the receiver, the silence felt oppressive. He dialed the number for the local police, but there was no dial tone. "It's dead," he said, frustration boiling within him. Suddenly, the door creaked open and a figure stepped inside. A man in a dark suit, eyes cold and calculating. "Looking for something?" he asked, a sinister smile creeping across his face. Jason's heart raced as he stepped back, pulling Mia and Mark with him. "Who are you?" Jason demanded, anger bubbling to the surface. "Just someone who wants to help," the man replied, his tone disarmingly calm. "But you need to understand the gravity of your situation." "Help? You're part of the conspiracy," Mia shouted, her voice quivering with anger. "Not at all," the man said, shaking his head. "I'm here to offer you a way out, but you need to listen closely." Jason's instincts screamed at him to run, but curiosity kept him rooted. "What do you know about the ISS?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. The ISS is a facade. The real experiments are happening in a secret facility nearby. They're not just studying the creature, they're trying to control it. What do you mean? Mark pressed, taking a cautious step forward. The man took a deep breath, his expression serious. They believe they can harness its power, but it's a dangerous game. If they fail, the consequences could be catastrophic. Jason exchanged glances with Mia and Mark, the weight of the situation settling heavily upon them. "Why should we trust you?" Jason asked, still wary. "Because I'm the only chance you have," the man replied, his voice urgent. "If you stay here, you'll be captured, and everything you've uncovered will be buried. You need to leave now." With the man's words ringing in their ears, Jason felt a flicker of hope. "Okay, we'll listen. What's the plan?" "Follow me," the man instructed, leading them towards the back of the gas station. He opened a door that led to an alley behind the building. "There's a car waiting for you. It will take you to safety." As they moved quickly, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But they had no choice. The men in suits were closing in, and time was running out. They reached a black sedan parked discreetly behind the station. "Get in," the man urged, glancing around nervously. Jason hesitated but quickly climbed into the back seat with Mia and Mark. The man slid into the driver's seat, revving the engine as he glanced in the rearview mirror. "Hold on," he said, slamming the gas pedal. The car sped away from the gas station, leaving the darkness behind. "Where are we going?" Mia asked, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. "To a safe house," the man replied. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move." As they drove through the quiet streets, Jason's mind raced with questions. Who was this man? Could he really be trusted? And what lay ahead for them? They arrived at a small house on the outskirts of town, its windows dark and uninviting. The man led them inside, ensuring the door was locked tight behind them. "This place is off the grid," he said, lowering his voice. "No one will find you here." Jason looked around, taking in the sparse furnishings and cluttered table, covered in maps and documents. "What now?" he asked, trying to keep his composure. "Now we prepare," the man replied, pulling out a stack of papers. "I have intel on the facility where they're conducting the experiments. If we're going to expose them, we need to gather evidence." Mia looked at the papers, her eyes scanning the contents. "This is incredible. We can't waste any time." The man nodded, his expression serious. "But we need to be careful. They're always watching, and they won't hesitate to silence anyone who gets too close." As they delved into the documents, Jason felt a sense of urgency wash over him. The truth was out there, and they were determined to uncover it. Hours turned into days as they meticulously pieced together their findings, uncovering the secrets hidden within the ISS and the government's cover-up. Each revelation only deepened their resolve to expose the truth, no matter the cost. But the pressure was mounting. They could feel the walls closing in, and they knew it was only a matter of time before the men in suits would come for them. As they gathered evidence, Jason realized they needed a plan to expose the truth publicly. "We can't just rely on the authorities. They're part of the cover-up," he said, pacing the small room. "Then we go to the media," Mia suggested, her eyes shining with determination. "We can leak the information to independent journalists." Mark nodded. "That's a good idea, but we need to be careful about how we do it. If they catch wind of our plan, they'll try to stop us." The man chimed in. "I can help with that. I have connections in the media who can help us get the information out." Jason felt a flicker of hope. "Let's do it then. We can't let them silence us." They spent the next few days preparing, drafting a comprehensive report outlining everything they had uncovered. Each detail was carefully crafted, designed to grab the attention of the public and the media. As the final document took shape, they felt a sense of urgency. The world needed to know the truth about the ISS, the experiments, and the horrors lurking in the shadows. On the night before their planned release, Jason's phone buzzed with a new message from the unknown number. "You're running out of time. They know what you're planning. Move fast." Panic surged through him. "They know," he said, glancing at the others. "We need to act now." They hurried to finalize their plans, preparing to leak the information as soon as possible. But as they worked, the atmosphere grew tense, the feeling of being hunted palpable. The man kept watch by the window, his eyes scanning the dark streets. "We need to leave," he urged. "They'll come for us soon." "Where do we go?" Mark asked, his voice tense. "To a backup location," the man replied. "It's safer, and we can finalize our plans from there." Jason felt a rush of anxiety, but he knew they had no other choice. They gathered their belongings and slipped out of the house, their hearts pounding as they moved through the darkness. As they drove to the backup location, Jason couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to loom larger, every sound felt amplified. They arrived at a small cabin in the woods, a place that felt more secure, away from prying eyes. Inside, the cabin was modest but functional. They set up their makeshift command center, spreading out the documents and evidence they had gathered. "We need to send this out tonight," Jason said, determination blazing in his eyes. Mia nodded, her voice steady. "Let's do it." As they prepared to send their report, a loud bang echoed outside, shaking the cabin. "What was that?" Mia gasped, her eyes wide with fear. "Stay low," Mark instructed, grabbing a flashlight and peering out the window. Jason's heart raced. They were close now, and they could feel the danger closing in. The cabin door suddenly burst open, and figures stormed inside, their faces obscured by darkness. Jason felt a surge of adrenaline as he prepared to fight. "Get down!" the man shouted, pushing Mia and Mark behind him as he faced the intruders. The figures moved swiftly, their intentions clear. They were here to silence them. Jason glanced at the evidence spread out on the table, knowing they couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. "We can't let them take this," he shouted. Suddenly, a struggle broke out. Jason grabbed a nearby chair and swung it at one of the intruders, hitting him hard. "Run!" he yelled to Mia and Mark. They scrambled towards the back door, but one of the men grabbed Mia, pulling her back. "You're not going anywhere!" Mark reacted instinctively, lunging forward to free her. "Let her go!" he yelled, a surge of protectiveness driving him. In the chaos, Jason fought against the remaining figures, adrenaline surging through him. He could feel the desperation in the air as they fought for their lives and the truth. The struggle intensified, and Jason felt a rush of anger and fear. They couldn't lose now, not after everything they had uncovered. "Mia!" he shouted, seeing her grappling with one of the intruders. "I can't hold on," she cried, panic in her voice. With a surge of determination, Jason fought his way through, shoving aside one of the attackers and reaching Mia. He grabbed her hand and pulled her free, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Let's go!" Mark shouted, leading the way out the back door and into the woods. They sprinted into the darkness, their hearts pounding as they heard the voices of their pursuers behind them. "They won't stop until they get what they want," Jason gasped, fear driving them forward. "We need to split up," Mark suggested as they reached a fork in the path. "It'll be harder for them to track us." "Are you sure?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah, it's our best chance," Mark replied. "We'll meet back here in an hour. Just stay safe." Jason felt a surge of reluctance, but knew it was their only option. "Okay, let's do it." As they took different paths, Jason felt a mix of fear and determination. He couldn't let them win. He had to get the truth out, no matter the cost. Jason navigated through the woods, his heart racing as he moved deeper into the trees. He could hear the distant shouts of the men behind them, searching for any sign of their presence. He found a spot to hide behind a large tree, trying to catch his breath. The tension hung heavy in the air as he listened for any signs of danger. He knew they had to regroup and figure out their next move. Minutes felt like hours as he waited, the adrenaline still coursing through him. Finally, he heard footsteps approaching, and his heart raced. He held his breath, preparing for the worst. But as the figure came into view, Jason felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was Mia, her face flushed with fear, but determined. "Thank God," he whispered, stepping out from his hiding place. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied, glancing back nervously. "We need to find Mark and get out of here." They hurried back towards the rendezvous point, the sound of their pursuers growing fainter. As they reached the clearing, Jason's heart sank. Mark was nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" Mia asked, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know," Jason replied, worry creeping in. "We need to find him." Just then they heard a rustling sound nearby, and Jason's heart raced. "Is that him?" As the figure emerged from the shadows, it was Mark, his face pale and breathless. "We need to go, they're close." "Did they see you?" Jason asked, urgency in his tone. Mark shook his head, but his eyes were wide with fear. "No, but they're searching the area. We need to get to town and warn someone." With no time to waste, the trio moved quickly through the trees, making their way back toward town. Jason felt a mix of fear and determination as they navigated through the darkness, knowing they were on borrowed time. As they reached the outskirts of town, the first rays of dawn began to break, casting a pale light across the sky. "We need to find a way to get this information out," Jason urged. "We can't let them silence us." Mark nodded, his expression serious. "There's a journalist I know who might be able to help. She's been investigating the ISS for years." "Let's go," Mia said, her voice firm. "We have to get to her before they do." They hurried through the empty streets, reaching the journalist's office just as the sun rose higher. Jason's heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. This was their chance to expose the truth. As they entered the building, they found the journalist, Sarah, at her desk, her expression shifting from surprise to concern as she listened to their story. "This is incredible," Sarah said, her eyes widening as she reviewed the documents they had gathered. "But you have to understand the risks involved." "We know," Jason replied, determination igniting within him. "But we can't let this go unreported." Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "I'll do everything I can to help. But you need to be careful, they'll come for you." As they worked with Sarah to compile their evidence, Jason felt a sense of urgency and purpose. They were finally on the verge of revealing the truth, and nothing could stop them now. Days passed as they collaborated with Sarah, crafting a comprehensive report that would shake the foundations of the government's cover-up. The tension in the air was palpable, but they pressed on, determined to see it through. However, Jason couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. They were being watched, and every moment spent in the office felt like a countdown to when the truth would finally come to light. One evening, as they were finalizing the report, Jason received a text from the unknown number once again. "You're running out of time. They know you're with Sarah. Leave now." Panic surged through him. "We need to go," he said, turning to Mia and Mark. "They found us." "We can't just abandon everything we've worked for," Mia protested, her eyes wide with fear. "There's no choice," Jason replied urgently. "If they catch us, it'll all be over." They quickly gathered their belongings and fled the office, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they navigated the dark streets. The feeling of being hunted intensified, and they could hear the faint sound of footsteps behind them. "Where do we go?" Mark asked, glancing around frantically. "There's a warehouse nearby," Jason suggested. "We can hide there until we figure out our next move." They sprinted toward the warehouse, heart pounding in their chests as they slipped inside. The shadows engulfed them as they caught their breath, fear creeping in once again. "We need a plan," Jason said, his voice steady. "We can't let them take us down." Mia nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We fight back. We have the evidence. They can't silence us forever." As they strategized in the dimly lit warehouse, Jason felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to back down now. "We need to leak the information tonight," he said, pacing the floor. "We have to get it out before they catch us." Mark nodded, urgency in his voice. "We can use an anonymous online platform. It'll protect our identities." Mia's eyes lit up with determination. "Let's do it. We can't let fear control us." As they prepared to leak the information, Jason's heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. They had a chance to expose the truth, and they couldn't let it slip away. Just as they finalized their plans, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the warehouse. Jason's heart sank. "They're here. Quick, hide," Mark urged, and they ducked behind a stack of crates, holding their breath as the footsteps grew louder. The door creaked open, and dark figures stepped inside, their movements methodical and precise. "Search the area," one of them commanded. "They can't have gone far." Jason's heart raced as he strained to hear their conversation. "We need to move fast," another voice said. "They're too close." Suddenly, the figures turned their attention towards the crates where Jason and the others were hiding. "I think I saw something over here," one of them said, moving closer. With adrenaline surging, Jason exchanged glances with Mia and Mark. They had to act fast. "Now," Jason whispered, and they lunged from their hiding place, catching the intruders off guard. The struggle erupted into chaos as Jason, Mia, and Mark fought against their pursuers. Adrenaline fueled their movements as they dodged and weaved, desperate to escape. "Get to the door," Mia shouted, her voice ringing out amid the commotion. Mark pushed forward, his determination evident. "We can't let them catch us." Jason swung at one of the figures, landing a solid punch that sent him staggering back. But the others were closing in, and time was running out. "Go now," Jason yelled, shoving Mia and Mark towards the exit. "I'll hold them off." "No, Jason," Mia cried, panic rising in her voice. "Just go," he urged, knowing they had to escape. He fought fiercely, trying to buy them time as they dashed towards the door. As Jason turned to follow them, one of the figures lunged forward, grabbing his arm and pulling him back. "You're not going anywhere," the intruder hissed, a sinister smile on his face. With a surge of strength, Jason broke free, but he knew he had to hurry. He sprinted towards the exit just as the figures regrouped, their eyes fixed on him. "Keep going," Jason shouted, his heart racing as he dove through the door and out into the night. Outside, Jason could hear the sounds of pursuit behind him. He sprinted into the darkness, his mind racing as he searched for a place to hide. "Mia! Mark!" he yelled, desperation clawing at him. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down, knowing they were close to the truth. Suddenly, he spotted Mia and Mark, huddled behind a nearby tree, their faces pale with fear. "This way," he urged, leading them deeper into the woods. "We need to find a way to get this information out," Mia gasped, her breath coming in quick bursts. "I know a way," Jason replied, his heart pounding. "We just need to get to the town square. There's a public Wi-Fi hotspot there. We can send it out anonymously." They moved quickly, the sounds of their pursuers echoing in the distance. With every step, the urgency of their mission pressed upon them. They had to expose the truth before it was too late. As they neared the town square, the first rays of dawn began to break, casting a pale light over the scene. "We're almost there," Jason said, determination surging through him. They reached the square, and Jason quickly connected to the public Wi-Fi, his hands trembling as he prepared to upload their findings. Come on, he muttered, anxiety clawing at him as he uploaded the document, detailing the horrors of the ISS experiments and the cover-up surrounding them. Just as he clicked send, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. "They're here," Mark shouted, fear lacing his voice. Jason turned to see dark figures emerging from the shadows, their intentions clear. "Run!" he yelled, adrenaline coursing through him. As they fled into the morning light, Jason felt a surge of hope. They had done it. The truth was out, and no one could take that away from them. In the days that followed, the world reacted to the shocking revelations. News outlets exploded with headlines about the experiments on the ISS and the subsequent cover-up. Jason, Mia, and Mark watched in disbelief as their fight for the truth transformed into a global outcry. Despite the danger, they remained vigilant, knowing the men in suits would not rest until they silenced them. They moved frequently, staying one step ahead of their pursuers as they navigated the chaos surrounding the revelations. But amidst the turmoil, they also found strength in each other. The bonds they had forged during their harrowing journey deepened, transforming their fear into resilience. One afternoon, as they gathered in a safe house, Jason felt a sense of determination wash over him. "We need to keep pushing for justice," he said, looking at Mia and Mark. "We can't let them silence us." Mia nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We have to keep the momentum going." Mark added, "We need to support others who want to expose the truth." Together, they began organizing efforts to raise awareness, collaborating with journalists and activists to ensure the truth would never be buried again. They became voices for the voiceless, standing up against the forces that sought to control and manipulate. As the sun set on the horizon, Jason felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced unimaginable challenges, but together they were unstoppable. The fight for truth was just beginning, and they were ready to take on whatever came next. Months passed, and the world slowly began to change in response to the revelations. Investigations into the ISS experiments unfolded, leading to widespread calls for accountability and transparency. Jason, Mia, and Mark became symbols of resistance, inspiring others to stand up against corruption. Despite the ongoing threat from the men in suits, they continued their work, determined to ensure that the truth would never be silenced again. They forged connections with activists, scientists, and journalists who shared their vision for a more just world. One evening, as they gathered in their safe house, Mia spoke up, her voice steady. "We've come so far, but there's still so much to do. We need to make sure this never happens again." Jason nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon him. "We can't let fear stop us. We have to keep fighting." Mark smiled, his eyes shining with determination. "Together we can make a difference." As they looked out the window, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the world. It was a new dawn, filled with hope and possibility. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but together they would face it head-on. They had uncovered the truth, faced their fears, and emerged stronger than ever. In that moment, they understood that their fight was not just for themselves. It was for everyone who had been silenced, everyone who had suffered in the shadows. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, they stood united, ready to embrace the future and continue their quest for justice. Together they would shine a light in the darkness, forging a path toward a brighter tomorrow.